see. Roll call. Yeah, cool. Everyone, right. Who's excited?
Totes.
Just silence for
Clearly
a
I
split
am.
second there. I nearly shat myself. Okay, right. So, before we begin, this session will be, I think, like a half and half, just running through a couple of things and then actually getting to the game. Obviously, I want to just run straight into the game, but then 5 seconds in, it might find out that there's been a grave miscommunication. Rules-wise, I haven't just rebuilt the game. Only difference is I personally use, but we can just not use it if it gets in the way. Flanking doesn't give it advantage; it gives a +2 to hit, just because there's a million other ways to get advantage, and it kind of detracts from spells like Guiding Bolt and True Strike and Foresight and things like that when you have to spend a spell slot when you could just like move 5 feet to the left. So I said flanking is a +2. It still applies to sneak attack and stuff, so don't worry about that. Languages are a bit fucky. I don't think it's going to come up because a lot of you don't have the languages, but things like for example, Ignan, which is the primordial language of fire, like fire elementals speak it, people from the plane of fire speak it. That is literally just like the sound of a blowtorch, but the pitch changes every now and again. And things like Druidic as well. Like the language isn't literally a written language. It's like being able to close your eyes and smell the wind and see what the trees are telling you and shit like that. But I don't think we've got any Druids, and I'm fairly sure none of you are playing fire elementals, so we should be good on that front. Lastly, this is opt-out. This is an option for you guys. I have 2 rules I use in my other campaign that introduce a bit of chaos, and it does. There's a slim chance it works out incredibly in your favor. Most of the time, it's just okay. 2 things: the potion miscibility table, which is if you drink a potion while under the effects of another potion, there's a chance they react in your stomach and something happens.
Nice.
Sometimes the reaction is, well, the best thing that can happen is one of the effects of the potion becomes permanent. So, for example, if you drink a potion of healing, and while you're affected by a potion of growth, you drink the potion, I would randomly determine one of the potions, and you would either permanently become 1 size larger, or you would permanently gain a maximum number of hit points from that potion. Like, let's say you rolled a 6 on the healing potion, you would gain 6 maximum hit points. Nice. However, the worst thing is they combine in your stomach and you explode. You take 10d6 force damage, and then everyone around you takes 5d6 force damage as an explosion ruptures from your gut. If you guys fancy it, we can give it a go. I don't know how many potions you're going to use. To be honest, I used it in my other campaign because one of my players was just like, okay, drink a potion of haste, and then I do this, and they're just like incredibly dangerous. So I thought, I know, I'm going to make it a bit more, a bit more unpredictable for them. But
that was a good thing.
I mean, they are yet to backfire. So
good thing no one chose that blood hunter class where you literally are like Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh,
drink the potions to be able to like get the benefits.
Oh yeah, the mutagens. Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. That playing a mutagen blood hunter and not, well, the one I played was Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he was a Minotaur. And my idea was that he just, instead of mutagens, they were just various brands of steroids. Good fun. Anyway, the other rule is I have a optional crit chart. I don't use fumbles like the natural ones for Nick, but what I do is give additional options for crits. It applies to you and bad guys, so that's sort of the trade-off. So whenever you crit, you roll a d20 and see what the result is, and depending on the damage type, it can do different stuff. For example, if you shoot someone with a lightning spell, I'm not sure if there's a ranged attack roll for a lightning spell, get a 20, you'd roll on it, say you rolled a 15, that might then give the added effect of they take the damage, and then the damage arcs over to a nearby target as the lightning sort of like jumps from one to the other. All the different damage types have different effects. and some of them are really interesting. There's a 1 in 400 chance minimum that you instantly decapitate whoever you're fighting. If you roll a 20, then you deal a quote unquote major injury. There's also chances that you can go insane if you take a lot of psychic damage, various other things like that. But yeah, it's up to you guys if you want to. It's just inject a bit of randomness into the game, a bit more
I like all
unpredictability.
of that randomness, so I'm down with that.
Yeah. I want to believe that stuff like that, especially the potion table, it does sort of add an element of verisimilitude. It sort of makes it more realistic that you can't just constantly be drinking potions of haste or potions of growth and not suffer some ill side effect. Like in the real world, if you had, it's basically just like doing a line of coke. Like if you did a line of coke every 30 seconds your entire life, you wouldn't just be fine. Like there would be a come down that would be vicious.
Have you tried it?
Probably won't get into that.
I'm willing to give it a go.
just for an experiment, just to see.
Maybe not for the rest of my life, but at least for a night.
Yeah. Just one evening, just to check, just to check.
And then we can see how I feel in the morning. And
yeah, and see if you fancy doing it again. I believe there's also a couple of other things that are, I think they're already in the PHB. They're optional rules. They're like optional rules for combat maneuvers. For example, if you've got high dexterity, you can try and tumble through a creature's space. Normally, if you are, let's say, small, then you can move through a large creature's space as difficult terrain. But ordinarily, if you're any bigger than that, or they're any smaller than that, you just can't do it. There has to be 2 sizes difference between you to move through someone else's space. You can try a tumble check where you basically do acrobatics and there's a chance that you can sort of skirt past someone. So if there's someone like blocking off a doorway, or you want to try and get flanking by like sweeping underneath a giant's legs or something like that, you can try something like that. And then there's other like options for shove attacks and that sort of thing. Lastly, jumping up from prone incurs an opportunity attack, and I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's everything. As I said, I might have forgotten something. I'll warn you now, I forget things a lot. However, let me just double check my list of things to go over. I think that is absolutely everything.
You're a
rules wise,
Mother Hubbard.
Rude.
Sorry, because just the ruling that you've just given about being prone, and if you jump up from prone, you get an attack of opportunity.
Well,
that really affects a particular skill I have.
Well, if you have a certain ability that makes your standing up from prone faster, for example, there is a monk subclass that lets you stand up from prone using 5 feet. There is, I think it's a feat called mobile. It gives you extra movement speed, and jumping up from prone only takes 5 feet. The athlete feat only takes 5 feet to jump up from prone. If you had something like that, absolutely no problem. That doesn't incur opportunity attack.
I'll send you the text, and if it doesn't apply, then fine. If it does, then I'll have to get over it and build a bridge.
Yeah. If your movement speed if standing up from prone takes half of your movement speed to do, then that's still the case. Dropping prone, you can do that if you fancy. I don't know why you do that within 5 feet of someone, but it kind of makes sense. Like to stand up from prone, you can't just like do it. Like it's a bit of an effort, and if someone stood there 5 feet away with a big sword, they're probably going to try and hit you while you're on all fours.
Question: What is an opportunity attack? Is that literally if you're trying to get out from prone, you can get attacked randomly?
When a creature leaves another creature's reach, that the creature who stood still, they can get 1 attack for free against them. There are various abilities that affect, for example, the Sentinel feat, which I imagine someone's going to be picking at some point. It's very good. Means that if they try and leave your reach, like your 5 foot squares around you, and you hit them, they don't go anywhere. They stay still. And then there's also stuff like the disengage action, which rogues use a lot, where you can basically disengage and then you don't incur opportunity attacks. Ordinarily, you only get them if someone leaves your reach But in this instance, it's whenever someone leaves your reach or stands up from prone, unless one of you is going to go Cavalier Fighter. And if you do, well, we're going to have words, because I've DM'd for a Cavalier Fighter before, and they are very fucking stressful. One of the most poorly worded classes in the entire game. I think rules-wise, that's everything. Now onto the slightly more interesting bit, the world. So I assume you've all read the briefing that I gave, the year is 31 PD, etc., etc., describing the world as it stands now.
Where did you do that?
That I think that was on the description of the vote thing. So if you made a vote presumably after reading it, then you will have read it. But I just want to go over a couple of things about the world. So, there's not like how come this hasn't happened yet? Obviously, we are playing on the continent of Tal'Dorei. This is Tal'Dorei Miners after all. However, technically, it's not known as Tal'Dorei yet. The continent is called Gwesar. I will probably get it wrong. It's an Elven word. The reason it's called Tal'Dorei now is because someone saved the world and their name was Tal'Dorei, and they said, "Oh, it'd be nice if we renamed the continent after them," which is a bit weird, but whatever. And now it's known as Gwesar, and it is 800 years prior to basically when our campaign is set normally. So, like, the legend of the crawling king and all these gods that are like no one's ever heard of. Like, there are people walking about on Earth who fully met gods. They were walking about on this plane around 31, 32 years ago. So a lot of people are still getting over the fact that they can't just go to their nearest temple and literally bump into Pelora on the way there. It's not the world is all of a sudden a lot less divine than it was before. That being said, because they've only just left, their impact is felt a lot more, and tends to be a lot more clerics, paladins, that sort of thing. Because, well, if you actually met God, chances are you'd start worshipping him. And other than that, a couple of towns don't exist. Because they haven't, there's 800 years between now and when our campaign is set, so there's a chance that some of them just aren't there. But for the most part, I think it should be exactly the same. Obviously, this will be a touch and go thing. Like, every now and again, I might say, "Oh, actually, wait, it makes no sense. That wouldn't be there, or this would be a different name," or that sort of thing. You'll notice if you have a copy of the Tal'Dorei campaign guide, the map here isn't exactly the same as the map in the book, because some of the things on the map just haven't been built yet. For example, there is a lake it's meant to be, if you look on the map, presuming you can all see it. Yeah. Yep. Towards the bottom right, there's the By Hills Basin. 800 years from now, that is a giant fuck off lake, and it is about 5 times the size. But that's because the person who showed up on the plane and had a castle made of ice that promptly melted and caused a giant lake, that hasn't happened yet. So the world is slightly different, but for the most part, mountains are still there, forests are still there, things are largely the same. And I think that's everything. Oh boy. So, any questions before we begin, or shall I begin narration?
Did you have a chance to briefly read over my skill?
Did you put it in the Roll20 chat or
in your Discord?
Oh, sorry, I've got Discord closed. 1 sec.
It's only whether or not it applies to me. If it does, then obviously, cry me a river and just crack on. But if it doesn't, then wicked and happy days.
Yeah, I might say at some point that if you've got a certain amount of movement speed, above a certain threshold, then you can do it without provoking opportunity attack because you're so fast. But I'm not sure if any of you are playing characters that have 70-foot movement speed. Let's see. So that won't incur an opportunity attack to do that. But if you the very last sentence, you can take a bonus action to blank. If you do that, you will be prone and have to stand up. Standing up does incur.
Okay.
But as I said, I will probably.
It won't for me to do it, but when I stop doing it, it will.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Nay.
I haven't heard Summer speak yet. Is her mic working?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Good.
He's alive.
Did you say you had a question, or was that saying nay, or me? I didn't quite hear. I think it was Mark.
No, I was saying nay.
Oh, you're saying nay. Okay, cool. Right, yeah. Yeah.
Can we get
I didn't know. I didn't know if you were saying nay or me in a funny voice. So.
Twas nigh.
So before we started, I sent you a quick message on Discord.
Oh yeah. 3 quick messages.
All secret squirrel stuff.
Squig it is. Squig.
Somebody stole my acorn.
Dude, if I could seriously pull off his voice, that's how I would play my character.
With all the information that you gave to us at the start, can we get that written down because my brain does not compute.
Yes,
everything.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say it in person first, because if I just said to you guys, okay guys, new campaign, here's a 25-page Word document with all my rules on it, you'd be like, oh, fuck's sake, okay, yeah, sure. And suddenly no one's excited to play the game anymore. Other than that, the only thing I do slightly differently from I think the way the game's meant to be played is my magic items tend to be really fucking weird. In a good way, I will mention. In a good way, you're not gonna try and use a sword and it will I don't know, turn into a bird or something. But they'll have weird special abilities. They won't just be, oh, you have +1 to hit, or you can cast this 3 times a day. They'll be like, this shield, you can plant it into the ground and it turns into a wall, and that sort of thing. So
if you hit this man with a staff, he turns into a chicken.
That is literally a weapon that I have. It's based off the one from Skyrim, as you can imagine. The
Jabberwock, wasn't it?
Jabberwock, that's it. Yeah.
I want a Dave.
Yeah, it's just a regular looking quarterstaff, but if you crit on someone, then they have to roll a Constitution saving throw, or they have to roll on the reincarnate table. Which and I
Adventure Time.
Yes.
Not Adventure Time.
I know of it.
Time. What's the one with the 3 brothers? Fucking hell.
Ed and Eddie.
Hold on, because they do something called Fantasy Costco.
Oh yes, Adventure Zone.
Adventure Zone, that's the one. Yeah.
Fantasy Costco. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of my magic items are inspired by shit from there. Especially not necessarily the Fantasy Costco, but the ones where they get the free items from the capsules. The random oh yeah, this is a ring that you can always tell if people are lying, but you can never lie, and just stuff silly little fun items like that. But otherwise, for all questions out the way and everything, then we will begin. So I'll start off with the description thingy. So the year is 31 PD. That's post Divergence. The Divergence being a relatively recent phenomenon, as the gods walked this world until very recently, alongside man and beast alike. You, the collection of you, have, from various walks of life, found yourselves in the aftermath of a horrible war. In ages to come, it will be known as the Scattering War. However, for the time being, it is just known as the War. A foul king known as Warren Drassig, a corrupt, evil tyrant, black-hearted and steel-fisted, reigns supreme from Imon, the capital of the continent of Guisar. Until approximately 2 years ago today, give or take, he was supreme leader. He called himself supreme leader, not very subtle, Matt Mercer. That and he claimed dominion over the entire continent and was very much trying to conquer the entire world. However, 2 years ago, he was killed. His brother, his firstborn son, Neminar the Blackfinger, has since taken over the throne, and things haven't exactly gotten better. There's been a sudden upsurge in the amount of undead walking about. Monsters reign more supreme than ever. Rather than ruling under an iron fist, they now live under a cloud of darkness. Evil stalks the realm more prevalently than light, and through the actions of the Jurassic line and their tyrannical regime, you have all, for one reason or another, found yourself wandering in a large group of refugees, for lack of a better word. A caravan of around 20, 22, maybe, somewhere in the 24 range people, all of which have lost their home, lost their lives, or always been wandering this continent, all because of the Jurassic regime. You have been rebuffed. You've been traveling together for up to you how long? At every city you've gone to try and seek shelter, they've said, no, go away. We don't have room. We don't have room. We won't have your kind here. And at first, it didn't make much sense until you got word of Torthil, a prospering town who took in any and all refugees, founded by refugees of the Jurassic regime, until the Jurassics went there and burned it to the ground, killing every man, woman, and child. No one's been to Torthil since. It is a literal ghost town, and no one wants to repeat their mistakes. No one wants to invite the people who have been left out in the cold by the Jurassics back into their city, because doing so invites the Jurassics in, and, well, they don't want to die. Obviously, quite a selfish way to look at it, but you can't help but understand, because, well, it's not exactly every day that someone gives you the opportunity to invite someone in and then consequently lose everyone you've ever loved. So, can everyone please roll a d20 for me? First roll of the game.
Get the bad ones out.
Oh,
Okay. So,
Oh, for
well,
fuck's sake.
good news.
Yes.
This is a pseudo initiative roll. Ellie, at probably the back of the caravan, I'd imagine, perched on top of a cart, legs crossed, book in one hand, pen in the other, is a well, Ellie, if you'd like to describe your character.
You see a light blue-skinned humanoid with choppy dark green hair. She's quite short, wearing a white shirt, light brown trousers, and black ankle boots with a long coat embroidered with pictures of coral creeping up from the hemming. She also has a leather shoulder armor embossed with various insignia, but probably a lot of people wouldn't even think of recognizing. She also has a leather pack slung across her body and is sat writing in a small book. The one thing that is very different about her is that you can see on the side of her neck she also has gills.
Okay. Thank you very much. And as you're sat there writing, what is it that your character is writing?
I am writing. She's writing a load of various things that she's learning about the top world, the surface. It's very different to her.
Mm-hmm. I imagine you've had quite a few conversations with the people in your caravan, asking you, like, how come you're blue, miss? What's up with them thingies on your neck? Like, common people speech. I imagine you're quite used to it by now. I don't know how long you've been on, as you say, the top world, but long enough that you're probably used to the stairs by now.
Very much so.
Yes. Lovely, right. And then sat, let's see. Tell you what, I will, I'll veto Nick's for a decent reason. And then we see, who got the next highest? Can't see. With an 8. Mark, if you would like to describe your character.
You see before you a human male. Looks very much like the gentleman in his picture. From conversations you've had, his name is Amun-Ra. He's a very striking man, but also quite forgettable. So you look at him and you think he's kind of cute, and then you turn away and it's like you can't quite remember what he looks like. He's got brown eyes, brown hair, but every time you look at him, his eyes are a different shade of brown, and like a mole he's got on his cheek has slightly moved to a different place. And he just kind of sits, he takes everything in, he watches people, and yeah, that's him.
Okay. So he's, well, not ironically, but probably doing quite the similar thing to the blue character that you've spotted at the back, just sort of taking everyone in.
Yeah, like occasionally he'll like take out like a notepad and will draw people. So he will draw pictures of people and kind of keep them in a notebook that he has.
Bit of an artist. Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start putting the tokens in the chat so you guys can have sort of a visual reference for who it is we're talking about. So that is 1 and 2. Oh, Ellie, can we grab your character's name as well, please? Because I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly the first time I try and do so.
Asterin Edazath.
Asterin Edazath. Lovely. Okay, so next up. Now, I don't know whereabouts this person would be in the caravan. Probably, actually, now I think about it, probably somewhere up at the front in the spotlight. Mads, if you'd like to describe your character.
Well, she's very, very pale white, but with a weird tint of blue to her skin that makes her look like really ill. But she's not. She's fine. She's great.
She really cold.
Yes, that one. She has really, really long, really pale blonde hair. She's very pale. Everything about her is very pale. Oh no. And she's wearing a rather long cloak with a symbol to the Moonweaver embroidered on it, and she's making sure that she's definitely not in touching distance of anyone, and has a tissue over her mouth, and she's just avoiding everyone.
Practicing social distancing. That's,
yes.
very, very nice of her. And then last, or second to last but not least, there is a, one sec, archive something really quickly. And then probably somewhere at the back, by virtue of speed, if nothing else, grumbling, complaining. We have, actually, what's your character's name, Mads?
Nailin.
Nailin. So then we have Nailin, and then, as I was saying, the slightly grumpy fellow towards the back, Angus Redchin. Angus Redchin, if you could please describe yourself.
Well, Angus is a ginger dwarf with a slight cockiness to him. He has some way with the ladies as well as other people, you know. He's quite a lovable character. He's got a bit of a swagger in his walk, and he's sort of dressed in a sort of Gale mail and a nice bright kilt. He has a nice ginger sort of plaited type beard that sort of comes down to his, like, you know, tip of his sort of big belly, and he's really grumpy as he has to drag his, you know, crossbow along behind him because he's so tired after all this gallivanting.
Lovely. So mostly just marching and complaining then. That 5 feet of movement speed doesn't, or 5 feet less of movement speed doesn't seem to make much of a difference until you have to walk for a straight day, and it adds up. Lovely. And then it seems like I'm describing everyone at the back of the caravan, but actually at the back, in a cargo container, you will see what looks like a big rock. Every now and again, you have to remind yourself, no, that's not a rock. That's not a rock. It's sort of, 3 feet long, maybe 3 feet ovalish, like an egg shape from above, covered in rocky spikes, like almost pyramids jutting out the back. And Nick, if you'd like to describe what happens.
Yeah. As you take note of the formation that is again quite easily forgettable, even considering his form, slowly but very surely emerges a 6'5" build tortoise, a turtle. He is dark green with brownish highlights. There are white coloured markings, almost tattoo-like, that cover the shell. His skin tone is like a mid-tone green with vibrant green freckles that almost seem to glow. And his eyes are a glowing, piercing yellow colour. He's very large for a turtle. He always seems to be relatively happy, slowly swaying his head in a smiley motion. Seems to keep himself to himself, hides most of his form. You've maybe seen his full size maybe once, twice perhaps, but usually seems a lot smaller on most of the occasions you've seen him come out of his shell. The clothing he wears is very minimal. He's got a dark purple dyed rag around his waist. He holds, it seems to be held in by some basalt stones, and he has a humanoid skull on the left of his shoulder, and he has a series of goblinoid skulls around his neck. He also, in the cart, the cargo cart, there is a rather large lance that seems to be carried by his side.
It's something like 10 foot long, isn't it? It's huge.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
You've heard people mention his name from time to time, but for the sake that he keeps himself to himself, you've perhaps only heard it a few. He goes by the name of Kahai Honu Lepella.
Kahai Honu Lepella. Lovely. Okay. So I imagine Kahai has been, as you say, he's sort of just like keeping himself to himself, but every now and again, towards the end of the day, perhaps someone's going to come up to where you're staying, and be like offering you food and that sort of thing. And that's probably, I imagine quite a little amount of interaction. Like that's one of the few interactions that you do have with people is when you sort of have to talk to them because someone else is preparing dinner, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So just a quick couple of questions between you lot. So what does because I only now am noticing Astrid and Kahai are both from the ocean. One is one has gills and one is a turtle. I think you have a language in common of Ep1.
Mm-hmm.
Would you two have interacted like regarding that, or is it just like yes, another sea dweller?
I would have probably given a courtesy nod, and or an almost shy kind of acknowledged smile, perhaps, without giving too much away. Very Caduceus-y kind of smile and nod
a bit dopey,
of reassurance.
a bit dopey, but well-meaning.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And just another thing, like about the world more than anything else. You were all probably abundantly aware. The Jurassic line has, as I said, controlled the continent was doing their best to control the continent for quite a number of years now. The elves and the rebel humans have openly taken up arms and objected to the control of the Jurassic line. However, the dwarves of Crackhammer, the Six Houses, have openly continued with business operations and trade deals, and it is arguably the immense material wealth of the dwarves that allows Jurassic to continue the war as fervently as they have been for so many years. So having Angus in the caravan, does that affect anyone? I'll tell you now, a lot of the other people in the caravan, the common folk, the farmers and the refugees, a lot of them are obviously quite unsettled by the big tortoise man, but it's sort of like a Voldemort Umbridge situation. Like Voldemort is less scary than Umbridge because Umbridge is the devil you know, sort of thing, and everyone knows dwarves. They have a reputation. They're slavers. That's what everyone says. Dwarves are slavers. So does anyone? I imagine you've, Astrid, you've probably got a bit of history written about it in your books. Does anyone's characters note on that? The idea of, well, arguably a slaver coming around with you in the caravan. No one's brave enough to kick him out, but definitely unsettled by his presence.
I think there's probably one reason why Hono would have perhaps positioned himself at the rear of the convoy to kind of be able to foresee anything that may arise within the convoy itself. But in terms of any sort of mistrust, I don't know that Hono would necessarily know or be concerned with him as a risk.
Yeah. Not as invested in the surface world, or say the surface world, in the main goings on. So possibly there's not as much history. But someone like Naylin, like as I said, the elves have taken a fervent anti-Jurassic stance, whereas the dwarves are arguably allies. Does that resonate with her at all? Actually, where did Naylin come from? Is she from Singorn or anywhere like that, or is it out in the sticks?
Oh, I put something down, but I can't remember what it was. It was near Westerland.
Okay, yeah.
Near that area.
Okay. So not far from where you are, actually. So there's a chance that so there's a chance that you're probably like the last person to have joined this caravan, because, well, for the time being, you are traveling westward on the Parchwood Way. If you have a look on the map, it's basically up in the top right. The Parchwood Way stretches between very far in the east off the map is Stilburn, and then that follows west and branches between Whitestone and Stilburn, and then Western and Whitestone are also linked by this Parchwood Way. It's sort of what connects the centre and the northeast of the continent together. It's the main road between those two places. And you are travelling down this road. As I said, I'm not sure how long you've been part of this caravan, but you've been sort of welcomed along. They all understand that, you know, no one's letting them stay, so you may as well stay together. This sort of unity this camaraderie has come up, even though everyone in this group is from massively different walks of life. You've got a lot of people who were displaced by wars, some of them, their families or businesses or houses were destroyed, and they've now gone onto the road to try and find somewhere new. Any 101 reasons why that they might be wandering, but we won't focus on that for the time being. What we're going to focus on is you five. Is it five? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you five. You're aware there's been sort of a rotating watch. Every now and again, someone says, "Okay, you go up to the front. We need someone to, like, you're in charge," because Steve, the only guy who knows how to use a sword, he's a bit tired. So, you cycle it out. Every now and again, you'll have people up front, usually groups of 4 or so. And it just so happens on this day, crazy coincidence this, that all 5 of you are asked to be in the front car, in the front caravan of your little convoy. I should note, on this map, 1 hex, like moving from 1 hex to another, is 1 day's travel. So it's, if you think about how long it takes to get from one place to another, one second. Sorry about that, slight technical difficulties. So yeah, as I said, the hex is 1 day's travel. So as I said, getting from Gat Shadow to Western, all of a sudden the mountain that overlooks the city, that's a 3-4 day journey. It's been slow going and it is incredibly boring. The most exciting thing that's happened is once someone saw a wolf. That's it. Nothing happened about it. They just, oh, look, a wolf, and it walked off. It's been mind-numbing. And arguably, nothing happening is, well, it's made things a lot more boring and arguably depressing than they needed to be. But as I said, your group of 5 has been asked. The leader of this caravan, say the leader, the person everyone's going to, they call him Ashy Pete. He's a really old guy, just covered in dirt. His eyes are like, he's sort of just like got, it's either just so caked with dirt that he's forced to squint, or some kind of like semi-sun blindness, or maybe just like smile lines so deep and so powerful that you just can't see his eyes anymore. He's just always squinting, always looking up at you. He's probably about 60, 70 years old, hobbles around with a cane. He's got like a Bernie Sanders haircut is the best I can describe it. Like nothing on top and just like an explosion of white, wafty hair coming out the sides and back, covered in grime. And he's asked all of you in his, let me do my best old man voice. Yeah, we need some young whippersnappers. You need to get in the front part. We got Steve hurt his leg yesterday. You need okay. And then he just walks off. So not really giving you much time to protest. And because the front cart, as I said, the day before yesterday, this guy Steve, the only person who knows how to use the sword, he was in the front cart when it jumped, one of the wheels cracked, he fell out, broke his leg, snapped it, clean, middle of the shin. He obviously isn't very good on guard duty, and the cart has had to be left behind. They just couldn't repair it. And, well, they're not going to leave him behind, but he can't be in the front cart anymore. So they've had to retrofit the storage cart, which Kahai has been taking such happy residence in. Now using that as the sort of point guard, if you will. It's one of the bigger, sturdier ones. It's got reinforced wheels to hold the weight of a turtle, who weigh something in the realm of 500 pounds, I believe.
467 pounds.
Okay, 467 pounds. Just because, I mean, the shell's fucking big, right? The shell's big. In this case, you are literally big boned. It's not just an excuse.
That's right.
And you 4 have been asked, yeah, you just you go sit in that car. Don't pay attention to the turtle man. He's okay. And again, walks off. So all 4 of you plus the cargo are sat upon this front cart. And you are now probably a day away from Western. This is kind of your last hope. It's one of the biggest cities outside of Imon. Obviously, you don't want to be going to Imon because that's like going to Berlin in 1939. You're a day away. I imagine probably quite hopeful. There's a sense of this is the journey's end. A lot of people are quite excited about reaching Western because they are kind of openly rebellious to Drastig in that they don't obey him. They don't believe that he is the rightful ruler. They want him gone. But again, they're not openly in rebellion. They just don't swear fealty. They call themselves neutral. So you're hoping that their quote unquote neutrality is going to allow you in. That it's going to allow you to actually
we're
stop
going to
traveling.
Switzerland.
They like to model themselves as Switzerland. However, their actual interaction might be. So actually, Switzerland is probably. No, Argentina is probably a good example for the dwarves. Argentina is a good example for the dwarves. Switzerland with like a hint, like a tiny little hint of France for Western, like the border between Switzerland and France. And you all are, as I said, on this cart, chugging along, slow going. The horse that's pulling you along is clearly not a cart horse. Clearly someone's like old nag that's used to pulling plows is just old and tired, grey, patchy fur. Is it fur? The horses have fur? Or is it it sounds weird saying a horse has fur.
It's not
coat.
a pelt.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a pelt. Yeah. The horse's coat is obviously like all matted and gross. All of everyone in the convoy, animal and people alike, are just dirty. You've been traveling for days, if not weeks. And you eventually arrive after a day or so's journey, after you take up the front space in the wagon, at the front gates of Western. As I said, there's sort of this sense of trepidation, a sense of excitement between the group of you, and you four are the first to see it. The caravans are spaced about 60 feet apart, just to cover as much area as possible at once. You're at the front and you're the first to see it. You call signal back, and you hear Ashley Pete from the caravan behind you. You go talk to them, see if they're gonna let us in. And you are tasked with, well, trying to be let in. At the front gates of Western, you see there are solid exterior wall. You've been going past farmhouses and the like, but solid exterior wall, big gate, closed naturally. The sky is slightly overcast. Two guards out the front.
Would it be fair to say that Ashy Pete has probably been in the convoy for a very, very long time and was probably the person to take me in?
Very possible. He has been in most like conflicts between people where like someone's like, oh, you're taking more food than you should be, or we don't want this person in the convoy. Imagine a lot of you probably got that at first. I mean, apart from the sort of almost supernatural effect of Alman-Ra's like sort of ability to blend in, you will stick out like a sore thumb, right?
Yeah.
Like you, one of you is a big
supernatural ability. He's just a regular, average-looking human.
Mm-hmm. Apart from the changing eye colours and the mold that disappears every now and again.
It's a trick of the light.
Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, so one of you is a turtle, one of you got blue skin, one of you is a dwarf, which is, politically quite bad, and the other one is what looks like, well, a lot of people say, is that a ghost? When they see Naylin, they ask if you're a ghost. So you guys probably not the most kind welcome to the convoy. Ashley Pete has been the one to say, oh, no, don't even worry about it. Let him in, not a problem. And because he, from what you can tell, doesn't have much in the world that isn't on two wheels and in a convoy of 24 people. So he's letting anyone in. He wants to try and find somewhere to settle down.
I mean, with that, Honu would probably go straight to the gate. He would most certainly be like a lot shorter than his full size, so I would say he'd probably easily go down to like maybe 5 foot rather than his 6'5".
So is that by virtue of just like tucking your arms and legs like
I'm
into your
literally
shell?
tucking like the top parts of my thighs and the top parts of my arms are like really hidden, and from what you can see of Hanu, he kind of looks like a weakling. Apart from he's obviously quite intimidating looking like Shell, he kind of looks quite weak. And yeah, he will just start walking towards the guards.
Yeah. So you will hop off the cart. He hops off first and starts heading forward. I assume you all follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You get within 30 feet of the gate, and there's a da-ding, 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 da-ding from the other side, and a guard on one of the towers either side of the gate pokes his head up and leans over and says, "State your business." Calling out to the group of you.
We're looking for a place to stay.
How much you paying?
What's the rate?
Well, there's the Blue Rose. That's probably 2 silver a night, and then there's let's see, the Overflowing Chalice. That's your 5 copper. And are all of you going to be staying at a tavern? And he sort of like ducks his head down and looks down, and has a look like down the convoy and sees that it's not just you 5. He sees there's a cart and then a cart and then a cart and then a cart, all of which have people just hanging off the sides of them.
For now, yes.
He ducks down for a second behind a wall, and then actually, everyone make a perception check. Okay, so I think the only person to hear the Naylin and Asterin, being elves, of course, your razor sharp hearing, you can hear on the other side of the wall. He ducks down and he says something along the lines of, I don't know. There's like 2 dozen of them. There's like, I don't know. And then you hear, and goes, well, I can't just ask them where they're fine. And then jumps back up, goes to the other side of the wall, says, just some standard security questions. Where are you all traveling from?
Well, none of us are really from the same place. I didn't even know half these people until I jumped on that there carriage. Ooh.
I love that. That's made
Does
my skin
that apply for all of you?
Where the fuck did that come from?
Oh well, mister. Southern Belle.
I do declare.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh my
Ooh,
god.
got myself a case of the vapors. Okay, so he sort of like takes back for a second, and you can see like the cogs turn in his head where he goes, "Is that a ghost?" Nah, it's not a ghost. It's just and then he says, "Oh, so you're sorry. What kind of group are you?" And you see he starts to get slightly more defensive. So you're not just traveling.
We are a group that is gonna pay quite handsomely if you let us all in, because we're all gonna be spending our monies for somewhere to sleep.
How much money do you have in your account? How much gold do you all have in your character sheet?
I've got like,
You've got like 10 gold each,
10,
right?
yeah.
That's a big fat
So-
zero, Chief.
So, you would know that you are by far and away the richest people in this convoy, and, well, he said the cheapest one is 5 copper a night. Dividing that up, let's say you got 10 gold, 5 copper, that's 100 silver, that's 1,000. That's 200 nights divided by 24 people. Everyone can stay for 8 nights each. So you know quite well that you aren't quite the kind of people he thought you to be at first glance. He says, "No, I'm fairly sure you can't afford to stay here. Sorry, you're gonna have to find somewhere else."
Well, I'm sure those of us who can't afford it can find other ways to pay debts, like humble work and such. I wouldn't deny the people.
He blushes, gets a bit red faced. He says, "No, of course you understand." Hey, and he like cocks one elbow up on the side of the wall. So how's it going? And then you hear, bong, and someone has hit him around the back of the head with some kind of club or instrument, and a significantly more angry gentleman hops up onto the wall. This is a grizzled old man, scar over one eye, scruffy white hair. It's patchy. You can tell there's like burn marks on his face that are sort of like the hair's grown in a bit weird, and his helm has been brought down like almost level with the middle of his eyes, so you can't even see hardly any of the expression on his face. And he calls out and says, "We don't have space for your kind. Keep moving."
Hey, Scarface. I'm a short little wee dwarf, and you're telling me you don't have space for me?
"We don't have space for slavers." And he spits over the wall. Obviously, he doesn't reach you. You're like 30 feet away, but it just hits the ground 20 feet from you.
How far away are they?
He's walls, I don't know, 20 feet away, and the walls maybe 20, 30 feet high.
Do I have to do Pythagoras?
Well, actually, no, because this is 5th edition, that is 30 feet. He's 30 feet away.
Cool.
He says, "Look, it's nothing personal. But last time people like you were let in, hundreds died. I'm afraid there's no space."
We can leave the dwarf out here if they'd like.
Wait a wee minute here, yeah.
"You're marked for death. Away with you!" And he outside. You are all aware this is. I don't think you guys have been at the front party for whenever you've arrived at a town to try and get entry. This is a running trend.
Sure. Well, I think that went well.
As you turn around, the gate's clearly not opening. You hear Ashley Pete calls out and says, "Well, we go get him next time, okay." And he calls back to everyone, and you start doing like 25-point turns in the middle of the road.
Hanu will walk up to the closed gate and give a knock.
Okay. There's a like one of them, Wizard of Oz sliding door bar that looks through. One of them, and they poke their head out, look left, look right, then look down, and go, "Ugh! What do you want?"
Well, it seemed that there was a problem letting us in.
He like looks behind himself, and you hear him go like, "This is the, yeah, no, and what do you want me to do? I can't just." Okay.
Well,
fine.
see, here's the case. If it's the little one you got a problem with, I can keep an eye on him.
Sorry, you understand. It's not just the little one, as you have so kindly put him. Look, you didn't hear it from me. The people are scared. Everyone's heard what happened to Torthil. Everyone's heard what happened to Torthil. And we don't want to be the next Torthil. We don't want to be another black stain on the surface of Guisar.
There'll be a black stain out on the road if you don't let us in. People are scared of here too.
Look. Okay. I'm not meant to. Western can't take anyone. nowhere with a name can take anyone, but there is a town that's been. People are building it literally as we speak. I've heard rumors from people traveling through and past. It's called Gravesford. It's maybe like 2 weeks, maybe. If you head south, across the By Hills River, down the Silver Cut. It's near Iron Sea Ridge, near the ruins of Torfil. There, everyone who's not allowed in. You're not the first group of people we've had to turn away, and it seems that they've given up trying to find somewhere to stay, so they've made somewhere to stay. If you head, that's the best I can. And then you hear, "What are you talking about?" And there's that old guy with the scarred face again. The beard comes up and shoves this younger kid out of the way. He like licks his lips almost like to wet them so he can like get shouting properly. And he's on the other side of this gate, but even still, he's like in your face. You're like 5-6 feet away, and he's still like
don't move.
feels like you're a foot away. He's like, "Look, I've got nothing against you. I've got nothing against any of you. But if you come in here, and my family die, I'll never forgive myself. You have to leave." And he turns back round and he says to that younger guy, like, "Shouldn't have fucking told him about Gravesford." And he closes the little hatch again, and there is silence.
Head slowly turns back to the rest of the group. You can see this like parched, like jaw partially open. It looks like a big, jagged smile. Eyes wide as you like. Well, I think that went well.
Just the button really quick. I'm picturing. Have you guys seen? What's it called? Land Before Time.
Yeah.
No.
You know the.
The Elder.
No,
You're
not
talking
the
about
Elder. There's
the Longfoot or whatever it's called.
no. What's he called? No, Littlefoot. Shot through the root. Littlefoot. Spike. Spike from Land Before Time. Who is a somewhat dopey Stegosaurus who always has the half-closed lids. Like when you say you've got your mouth half open and like a half a smile open, like this is what I'm picturing, right?
Yep.
I'm picturing Spike, who is completely non-verbal, just oh, okay, like dumb as bricks, right? I can't get the image out there. So as I said, Kai, he turns around and says, "I think that went well." And you can see you turn around, and almost immediately, before you'd even had that second conversation, the other people in the carts gave up. They started to turn, and they're now like getting the carts around, having to convince, get the horses. They got like 5 minutes rest as they sort of stretch without the harnesses on all the carts, and they're trying to convince them to get back on the cart and having to put the harnesses back on. They're old, they look tired. And Pete comes up to actually, who's probably the most talkative of your bunch? Who's the most likely to talk to anyone?
That would be me.
Okay, yeah. So he's going to come up to you, knowing that he could probably get more of an answer out of you, and says, "So, what did they say? Same again? No room for all kind by any chance?"
There was some spitting, and then there was very much a very firm no. But otherwise, we just try somewhere else.
There ain't much where else. Okay, back on the road. And like for the first time since you've seen him, I think for a split second his smile drops. Like for a second his shoulders drop, and there's sort of like that as I said, the smile lines that make his eyes just almost completely invisible because he's just squinting so much. Like for a second they drop and become just the wrinkles on the face of a really old, tired man. And you'll turn around, hop back on the carts. So were all of you part of that second conversation where Kahai spoke to the guard and he said, "You didn't hear it from me, but there's a town called Gravesford"? Was everyone there, or was that just Kahai?
I think Honu said it was just him that he reapproached.
Yeah. So do you well, I'll leave it to you. I imagine you don't just keep that information to yourself.
Yeah,
so I'll let you chat to everyone.
Honu will approach Ashy Pete and mention the communication of where there may be a place for us to head to. Obviously, give foregone warning that it'll likely be the same story, but it may be worth a go.
Yeah. You tell him about this town, and he has never heard of it before, which is impressive. He's been alive for 70 odd years, and he's never heard of a town in the general region that he lives. So he's surprised that it exists, and he says, "Well, any stop's better than no stop." And as I said, like for a second, his smile dropped earlier, and you can tell that, like, just hearing the name of a town that might work has given him that extra little spark of hope. And he's okay, back on the road, same again, same tomorrow. And you will climb back on the carts, and Steve, the only guy who knows how to use a sword, his leg remains broken, so he can't continue to be guard. And you did such a swell job on the day you arrived to Western. You're all asked to continue being the point guard until something goes catastrophically wrong. And even if you were to not accept, Ashy Pete will completely disregard your response, and you'll be sat in the front carriage anyway. And you head off. So, of the group of you, who is most likely to be a navigator?
Me.
This would be like a survival check, or just a flat wisdom check.
I have
any person who has
a wanderer feature.
Oh yes, from the Outlander background. Yeah, that very helpful. So you would know. You can just sort of like smell the air and look around at the grass and see. Oh yeah, no, like in 3 miles time, it gets like 1 degree more green. That must mean there's water that way. And you can navigate using seeing, okay, the sun's over there, that there, we need to head on this road. And it is a road, the Silvercut Roadway. You're going the southernmost branch from Western, following it through the Bramblewood, crossing the By Hills River, and then you're sort of presented with a choice. There is the safer route, arguably, where you follow the road up to the north side of Iron Sea Ridge. I'll do a little drawing. So, is anyone colorblind?
No.
Nope.
Cool. So, you're in Western.
Slightly.
What kind? Red and green?
Yeah. Oh, just
Okay.
red.
No, I will use different shades of blue. So you start in Western, going down this way, and you get to about here, and you're presented with a choice. The quicker way, but slightly more dangerous, is we'll call it option B because it's at the bottom, where you just cross the wilderness. It is, well, I say the wilderness. It is not overgrown forests and monsters in every turn. There are a number of dangers for going off the road, but it's still not,
It's more a dirt road than a fortified road.
Exactly, yeah. Everyone goes by. You can imagine that at some point it will be, because if this town is going to be there for much longer, there's a good chance people are going to start cutting across and a road will be built, but for the time being,
I think someone may have cut out there. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
I think we've lost Ollie.
Did we decide on option B then?
I think Ollie's still talking to himself, but none of us can hear him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
This is going well.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hey.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Slight technical difficulties. No problem. No problem. Where was I? I think I was describing the most horrific thing on the continent, the Gallows Crossing. Very strategically placed. Literally just a set of gallows, which are the things you hang criminals from. 4 of them that go one over each road in each direction. This is literally the biggest crossroads on the entire continent. And it has been strategically placed as a horrific, grisly symbol of the Drassi's rule. The ground there is literally stained black with blood dripping from the skies, and people say that sometimes you cannot see the sun for the amount of crows that flock in and out, picking at the remains dangling from there. So, as literally, road is safer. However, there is the moral damage that you may take for having to go past such a horrific reminder of literally the regime that has displaced every single person in the caravan.
Do we have any movement penalties from going across country? Because if there's no movement penalties, we might as well go cross country and save ourselves, half the time.
I think it's just a case of
It's a
the
bit
dirt
more
road's fine. It's just that it's probably less
But
safe.
wait, no.
Oh,
wait, can you? Oh fuck! Can you guys still hear me?
you're
Yes.
a bit
Yeah.
robotic, but yeah.
Well, we can hear
Okay. Okay, right, yeah. Oh boy, love this. So great. So I got new internet the other week, and it's been a little bit spotty. So, option B is slightly slower, like literally speed-wise, but distance-wise, even if it was half speed, you'd still be getting there faster. Because it takes around a week from that like splitting point. It takes around a week to go via the Gallows Crossing, and around 3 days, obviously increased a little bit to maybe 4 or 5 by just cutting across the rough terrain. It's just like farmland, open grassland, maybe some loose forests and slight hills and rocky crags and that sort of thing, but nothing, no real landmarks.
So there's nothing treacherous going cross country that we're aware of.
It's slightly more treacherous, but not to a hellish extent. You're not gonna, hopefully, not gonna die just by crossing a bit of rough terrain.
And Gallows Crossing, from what we know, it's not like there's a checkpoint or anything like that. It's not like a stationed with guards or anything. It's just
Well, someone has to put the bodies up.
okay.
So there's a chance that while you're there, there is someone putting a body up. And like I said, it's the busiest crossroads. It's like trying to avoid the police by going on the M25.
Okay.
And on top of that, like, I think actually people probably mentioned it to you guys, like, he doesn't know if the people's hearts could take it going past that, because there's a good chance, like, any of you who've like literally lost family from this from this war, there's a good chance like one of your family members is hung from the neck at this crossing. There are literally like it's I can't even begin to imagine, like, me, the person, cannot begin to imagine the amount of corpses that it takes to describe as it is in the book. Like, it is disgusting. As I said, ground is stained black. The sky, the sun is blotted out by the amount of crows and ravens picking at the corpses.
Are we talking like? Has anyone played Outlast, the first one?
No, I am scared to the baby. Is there something? If I Google Outlast and you give me a name, can I describe it? Can you describe it? Or?
The Outlast one, the gym area, possibly the best one.
I did not get far in that game.
Oh, it's great. You have to do it with a glass or a bottle of wine with you though, so you've got
Oh yeah. This is
thing.
There's
Cool.
like this is the kind of thing that history textbooks are written about. Like this is the kind of thing that when in hundreds of years' time, when people discuss the horror of the Jurassic regime, this will be the example they use. It's horrible. It's not just killing anyone who disagrees with them, it's putting them on display. A horrific sign of the power and that's the supreme tactic that the Jurassics use, and that's sort of why everyone hates them so much, is that they don't believe in war via like honorable combat and conquest. They literally are trying to control the world purely by fear, like terror tactics, subterfuge, just fucking with people's minds, plots, conspiracies, lying, deceit. And as I said, in an age where gods are only just gone, a lot of that sort of wasn't really on the table. Like there was a code to things, everything made sense, but now everything's up in the air. They're doing what they like, and unfortunately it's working.
Would that be something that would be known to all of us, or would that be something I'd have been told? Or
I think it would, if not been told, something you definitely got like that came across to you. A lot of the like that interaction you literally just had at the gates of Western, that was possibly the most paranoid group of people you've ever seen in your life, and that's what this regime is causing. It's just immense paranoia. Hey, that's a game we played. Like everyone is scared. Like the people who have been like their third cousin was killed by in a Jurassic raid. Like their farm was burned down, and all of a sudden that person, their third cousin, isn't welcome in town anymore. Like, oh yeah, this. Imagine if like your auntie got mugged in the street, and then you weren't allowed to leave your house as a result of that. Like people are so incredibly paranoid. No one who's not part of the community is allowed into a community. Like you can't sort of go out into town anymore. People are scared that if they go out and try and just sort of mingle or hang out, that they'll be either abducted or sort of investigated by spies or these
So it's almost
subterfuge
like
agents.
the Nazi regime meets
Yeah,
COVID.
it is. yeah, you know, like you're not far off. Like towns that used to be bustling and full of life are now just borderline ghost towns, because if you're not scared of the police, you're scared of people thinking you're the police. Because there's been many reported cases of people have been like, you're working for the Jurassics, and then like throwing them out of town and burning their house down purely out of fear and paranoia. It's chaos. There's no other way to describe it. And that's why they call it, as I said, in years to come, they call it the scattering war, because even if you weren't displaced by it, like directly by the war, the effect of it still tore everything apart. And that's what this war's doing. It's just tearing the world apart. And the first son, Nemenar Jurassic, he's doing a lot more of the subterfuge, the blackmail, the using dark forces and that sort of thing. There's rumors that he is a necromancer. The reason he is named Nemenar Blackfinger is because his left arm is withered and dead and black because he has been meddling with necromancy for too long. It's literally killed one of his arms. So it's just like this curled up husk that he keeps like clamped to his chest because he can't move it anymore. So, hence, you know, the black finger, because his hand is literally like gangrene, frostbite, dead. Yeah, just you know, Guisal's not a very nice place to be at the moment. There are obviously other continents, but a lot of people just aren't going to give you a ride because they don't want to be marked for death for allowing you on their boat. And I don't think any of you know teleportation circle.
So,
Looks like we've got a choice to make.
Right.
So if it came down to it, let's go in order. Asterin, is it Asterin? Yeah, Asterin. What if it was down to you and you exclusively? What way would you be going?
If I was going and I didn't have to worry about anyone else, it would be A, because she's more interested about the history of the place.
I imagine you don't enjoy the fact that it's the site of a monstrosity, but you're like, someone's got to take pictures, someone's got to make notes about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If this is what's happening, she needs to know about it. That's what's correct.
Yeah. That's what your That's what your studies for. That's what your research for. Yeah. And who was the second person? Yeah, Amun-Ra. If it was up to you.
If it was up to me, Amun-Ra would choose B. He wouldn't want to
B.
go through there.
Okay. Anyone else? What's sort of the way everyone's feeling? Obviously, a lot of people. There's a lot of fear of not using the main road. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't like being off the road. That's dangerous. It's dangerous. I don't like it. But then there's other camp of people who are like, I don't want to fucking see that shit. Like I don't want to see it. And even the people that don't quite understand where they're going, they're sort of just like tagging along, just like looking for a home. They are also you get the impression that if they saw something like that, it could if you're trying to foster hope, it's not something that's gonna make you feel good.
I think for Hanu, I think if he's given his background, he's not scared or in fear of seeing death. It doesn't make him happy, but he knows, through his beliefs, that it's not always the end of the journey. So I don't think he'd be too bothered by either route.
But there's this is sort of like a philosophical question. If there is something beyond death, what does it mean to defile a corpse? What does
that
feel
is
about
I mean that's a no-no.
Yeah.
But I mean if there was
So it's a torture with a human skull on the shoulder.
Yeah, if there was other turtles there, I mean Honu would probably try to try to make something from it, because obviously that's his heritage. But I mean, he wouldn't want to see them defiled necessarily. It would probably fuel his anger.
I would say Angus will go for B because the safer route is always the better route from my background.
Okay, so I think that is one for each. Very helpful. So deciding vote. Sorry to put you on the spot. Neely.
Well, she's quite selfish and doesn't pick up on other people's emotions. So she doesn't give a shit if other people are uncomfortable as long as she is going what she would consider the safest route. So she would probably go for A.
Okay, yeah, cool. So in that sounded really dismissive. I promise I didn't mean for it to be. So in regards to, obviously you're a cleric.
Yep.
Opinion on undead?
Well, I'm not a fan, but then I'm not. It doesn't really bother me.
Okay, yeah, you're ambivalent on the topic. I mean, the Moonweaver isn't one of those deities that's like you must destroy undead wherever they may roam or whatever. like Dawnfather, Raven Queen really don't fucking like undead. Like they're very anti-undead. Moonweaver is very much a more about what you do in life rather than what happens to you after death, kind of thing. So yeah, fair enough. So going off that, with regards to your comfort, um, there will be like an hour or so of being very, very uncomfortable. The smell, the crows, not to mention the sight. But other than that, it would be a more comfortable journey. So if it came down to a vote, it sounds like you're going to route number A, or number A. Route A. Yes, the well-known number. Let me sort something out really quick.
With how long we've been on the road and like Hanu's background, would it be fair to say he knows like the smell of spirit, like a spirit, or a ghost, or phantom, or something along them lines?
I would say
would he be familiar with a scent, not to be able to like track or whatever else, but if he smelt it again, he'd know that it was that.
Are you referring to like any one particular spirit, or just spirits in general?
Just spirits in general. Like,
okay.
If one was stood right next to him and he took a big old breath of air, would he be like, oh, ghost?
I think you'd get like a definitely like a tingle down the back of your spine. You're probably more than a lot of people. You know that thing when people say, "Oh, someone just walked over my grave," where you get some sort of chill and like, yeah, you would be more in tune with knowing what that meant. Like if a ghost literally walked through you, most people are like, "Oh, a breeze," but you'd be like, "Oh, that wasn't a breeze. That was actually a ghost."
Okay.
Because as you said, your tribe is
well, my particular skill set of my tribe,
your people, your skill set, everything like that. Yeah, they were you're attuned to that sort of thing, so you're definitely aware of it.
The only reason I ask is because of Nalian's appearance. I would have thought with
right,
Hanu's background, he might have got a little bit close and maybe tried to sniff out if she was a spirit or not.
So the first you meet Nayland, the first thing you do is just, "Hey, how's it going?" "Yeah, you're good." Okay, my book. But if let's say he was to find a ghost, like he gets that chill, he gets a, "Oh shit, what was that?" Like, what's his reaction? Is it draw his weapon, get ready to fight, or is he like, "Oh, I'm going to try and..."
He's been raised to know the right kind of spirits and the wrong kind of spirits. So I would imagine he would be cautious but not scared.
So very aware of like, there are some that are...
They're just like people. To him, they're just like people. There are good people, there are bad people. Yeah.
That's a really cool way of looking at it. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, yeah. So, but you're very much aware that like, if there's a malevolent spirit, it's not cruel to kill it.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. So, by the sounds of it, you're going route A. Ashley Pete says, "Well, whatever you say, okay, it's gonna do good on my spine." And he
There be gold in them damn helmets.
There's gold in them there hills, hooray!
I think mine and Nalian's characters have now rubbed off on the DM.
Oh yeah.
I was genuinely considering, like, the second you did that like Southern Belle thing, I was like, okay, right, next character meet's going to be a cowboy. Also, just so you're all aware, because this will inevitably happen, if and when Durak dies, my backup character was actually a cowboy. Didn't get the idea from Matt. I told Lara about it the other week. Okay, so you get to, as I said, you're traveling down this road for, well, as I said, it's a hex a day. It's slow going. You travel, I think, slightly faster than you would on foot, because it's 1 hex per day on foot. So I think you actually travel like 1.5. So it's 2, 4, 6.
What are you doing?
It's around 10 odd days. You spend the first like 6 or 7 or so traveling down the Silver roadway. It is boring, as it has been. There's nothing. The sky this time of year seems to be just always a bit overcast. I will give you an exact date when I can remember what the calendar of Tal'Dorei is like. But it is just grey all the time. Seems that the grass isn't as luscious and green. And as you approach the river, it seems to move sluggishly rather than with the, it's a river. You'd expect it to flow, but it seems everything just has a sort of a dampener on it. There is no silver lining to this cloud. And you reach the point at which you would turn off. And everyone make perception checks for me.
You say deception or perception?
Perception or actually a perception or survival. If it makes much of a difference between anyone. Okay. So
redone the or is it just mine? Have they redone how it shows?
Say again?
How the scores show, the rolls. Mine looks different to how it normally does.
How does it look for you? Because my one's glitching out a little bit, and I can't see most of the layout. It just has numbers and then the word.
You've got advantage toggled on, so.
Yes, yeah.
I meant mine's just got. Normally it comes in a square, but there's no square. It's just the number.
Yeah, I think that's just a visual bug.
That'd just be the macro.
Yeah, it's just
the macro is different. That's all.
Yeah, it's a thing I've noticed it like sometimes in Roll20, like especially at the moment. I think they're sort of scaled back on how much actually processed. So it gives you the number. It doesn't give you the little text box, which is annoying.
You can make it. It's a macro. It's quite easy to do, but
yeah. No. This is the default one, but it's just like it hasn't shown up for whatever reason. And if you scroll far enough back, like literally earlier today, it should look like that. But maybe it's just because it's Czech. Who knows? So you arrive at the point at which you turn off, or you would turn off, sorry. And Asterin, Asterin Nayland, again, the elves, you notice that the bend in the road, there's a the grass to the left is disturbed. There's something off about it. You can't quite tell, but you can just like spot it. It's like out the corner of your eye. There's something off about that, whatever it might be. So you two both notice it. And if you were to go further, I should say I've been using your character's first name. Should I call Honu? Just for ease of use, is it like a Japanese thing where the surname is the first name and stuff?
So yeah, it's kind of like that. So you may have heard in obviously there would have been curiosity about Honu's background or like where he's come from, and you would know by now, I would imagine, with how long you've been on the road, that what his name actually means. So his name is pronounced Kahai Honu Lepella. That actually means outcast.
So it's almost like a title.
So, kind of, yeah. So Kahai means outcast. Honu actually means snapping turtle. And Lepella means guardian.
Very cool. Okay, so Honu is the actual first name. Kahai is like a title, an honorific or a mark, or
exactly. Yeah. Because
does he introduce himself as Kahai Honu Lepella?
If he goes like by anyone of like a higher stature or like nobility, then he would by honor. By the honor of his tribe, even though he's been outcasted, he would refer to himself as Kahai Honu. But to people, family and friends, he would refer to himself as Honu.
Okay, so it's when it's like a formal greeting, he uses his
Yeah.
Okay. So Nayland, you have a look out on the disturbed area, and I think you would notice, Honu, like being a insightful, perceptive individual, you notice the not quite ghost lady is craning her neck off to the left, and with your survival check, because the survival check is sort of what you would need to identify what's quite wrong. You notice that the grass is disturbed off to the left, but not in a sort of there's something in the bushes way. It's like it's been like tamped down almost. Like there's like a maybe 8 foot wide section of the grass that has been sort of. It looks like someone's just gone over it with a. I don't know if you've ever seen videos of people making crop circles where they use like a plank of wood, and a rope. Yeah, it looks like someone's done that, and there's just like a section that's been sort of pushed downwards, and it goes off for a while, and eventually it turns, and you can't see where it goes, but it looks like it goes on for some way.
Point this out to Naylin.
And now you can sort of notice, oh, that's what's wrong with it. There wasn't just like it was going the wrong way. It's actually been pushed downwards. There's sort of like a divot almost where the grass is.
Does it look like somewhere I've been laying?
Well, this is like as you're riding, it looks like something has been pushed down in the area. Yeah, it looks like a divot or an indent. But as I said, it goes on for. If it was one object making that indent, it would have to be like 1 kilometer long. So if your first instinct is, it goes on for a little while. Like it's hard for me to describe. Like what it looks like from ground level. It looks like, for lack of a better term, like someone's made their own road through the grass.
Okay.
And eventually the road turns and the grass is just long enough that it obscures the exact route that it takes. But as you're all sort of like taking a second and looking at it, trying to figure out what it is, actually Pete comes over. He says, well, now, looks like we ain't the first person to be going this way. And he sort of like very slowly, 10 foot per round, hobbles up to the edge of where the actual like worked road meets the grass and sort of like pokes at it with with his stick. And he's like, yeah, see, look here. And you points out and you see there are hoof marks leading off the path and into the grass, followed swiftly by 2 even track marks. And it seems that the grass being pushed down was by a cart. It was by something has basically carved its way through the grass and seemingly has taken the route that you've decided against. And he he stood there for a second and he like taps his staff on the floor, and he turns to Naylin and he says, you know, I understand that you want to remain comfortable. I am quite the same, but I think some fresh air could do us some good. And he just like sort of turns and looks down the trampled grass. If you don't mind a little bit of a bumpy ride for the next couple of days, then we'll get you a nice soft bed.
Well, all due respect, sir, I 100% do mind if my tushy gets sore on the bumpy road.
He is covered in so much dirt you can't see it, but he is blushing. And he says, well, it's not my business between a lady and her tushy. And he gets back in the cart and says, guess we're away then. And basically motions for everyone to like. At this time, a lot of people saw you guys hopping out and having a look. and they took that moment to get out and stretch their legs, have a drink of water. Some of them they have been, refilling their flasks and any water that they had from the river. And after about 15-minute or so break, you will hop back on the carts and head up towards Route A. So following it northward, there are, 2 days. Yeah. So there is probably about 2.5 day journey before you were to reach the Gallo crossing. And as I said, it is boring. At this point, you do actually come across someone else going in the opposite direction as you. There is an old, looks like an old farmer, got a big old woven straw sun hat, just pushing along his donkey that's carrying a crate of goods along the road. You've seen there's been a couple of farmhouses just off the road, so he's probably either going home or going to see someone in any one of those houses, and he nods to you as you pass. That's one of the first people you've just seen on the road in quite some time. And you continue on. One day turns into 1.5, turns into 2, and then you awaken on the second morning. What's everyone's sleeping habits like? Deep sleepers, light sleepers? I know the elves obviously only able to sleep for 4 hours, but
I'm relatively light, but I sleep inside my shell.
Yeah. And I imagine being inside your shell a lot of the time, you're probably just catching up on sleep. So you only sleep for 1 hour a night, but then you spend 12 hours a day actually sleeping like a koala or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Light sleeping from training.
Okay. Yeah. So always ready to be off. Yeah. You are awoken crack of dawn. Sun. The first fingers of sunlight are just breaching the horizon. The sound of a crow overhead. And you snap awake.
But I know what the fuck that is.
Well, it was my impression of a crow.
No, well done.
Yeah.
It's just a bird, but you have noticed, I think you would know your research. Does it extend to anthropology or is it just history?
We've got very little knowledge of what's going on. We would have no idea.
Okay, yeah. So you've heard about these fascinating creatures called birds. They're like fish in that they're they up and on the floor at the same time. And you've noticed that a lot of them like to make noise early in the morning. You've never heard this type of bird make noise early in the morning. This isn't one of the bird songs.
In the cart where the cargo cart, you see Honu awkwardly wedged with his lance in between the cargo bars, and one of his arms outside the bar, and he's awkwardly adjusted, where he's woke up in alert and has panicked and attacked the first thing he can see, even though nothing's there. And then you see him slowly retracting his limbs, where he's trying to take himself back into the car.
Okay, so I have officially headcanon. This is now effectively true in my eyes. You are a blend of Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda and Spike from Land Before Time.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Awesome, brilliant. Okay. So you awake with the start. You hear it as well. Just this solitary. I won't try and do it again. This solitary bird call, and you also know that's not one of the birds that sings when dawn comes. When if you back in my day, when you're out at night or whatever, and you get home stupidly late, or you stay up way too late, and you start hearing bird song, and you're like, oh fuck, the sun's rising. Notice how crows are never one of the birds to sing as the sun rises. And you notice crow calls out, and you're like, oh, okay, no, it's just a bird singing as the sun rises.
I'm
there's no other bird singing.
And
Yeah.
walking over to the rest of the group.
Yeah, and there's
See, he's like
there's no
scratching
other.
his head, like looking as if to, like with that realization that this bird doesn't usually sing in the morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I'm
bird
gonna
doesn't usually sing in the morning, and the
gonna
ones
look
that
out the
usually
window.
do are silent. The only
Nice.
bird that you can hear is a crow, and you all sort of like going your various ways of doing so. Stretch your legs, get up in the morning. I mean, literally, Honor, all he has to do is just like jump out of his shell, and that's it. Like, it's a bonus action. He's awake. But he doesn't have to put clothes on. He doesn't have to take down his tent. He lives in a shell. It's very helpful. You get up, start walking about. Other people start, stretching as well. Ashley Pete, he's a 70-year-old man, so he wakes up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He's been trying to pee for like an hour, just off the side of the road. Just
Is there any chance we know which direction the crow was crowing from?
You make a perception check.
Nope.
Um,
I was
you
too
don't know
busy
which.
unwedging myself from the cargo cart.
Yeah, you didn't catch where that crow call came from, but you catch the second one. Oh, another one from somewhere a different direction, and you hear as a bird flies overhead. And by this point, you're up and about, you're walking around having a look, and you hear it again. Oh, there's another crow flying westward-ish, and then there's another one flying westward, and you start looking in trees and all sorts of other like rocks and maybe upturned boulders that might be in the road, or bushes and all sorts of random bits and pieces in the scenery. All of a sudden birds start to alight from these structures. Like 3 leap out of one branch, 3 leap out of another, caw, 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 all crows taking flight and heading westward. And within the course of an hour, maybe, it goes from being a silent 5 o'clock morning to by 6 o'clock, all you can like remember hearing all day is just of bird wings fluttering overhead. It's not like a literal constant storm, but there's just always one above you. Always one above you. It's like when you if you're used to living in like a busy town center or a city, and you go to the countryside and you're like, why the fuck, when the birds stop singing, like it's all you can hear is just is bird wings.
So you say that we
west.
would probably recognize them or consider them to be like fish of the sky.
That's what that's what they've been described as in S1.
If I can see one about at any point, how high do they fly?
It varies. It seems like they don't seem to have anywhere to go upwards.
I would say then at any point any one that I see flap out of a tree or go by, if it's within 30-foot range, I would probably try and spear it with a javelin, just randomly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I won't even have you roll. You just wait until there's a really busy bit, and you just throw a javelin into like a cloud of crows. You get like 3 of them,
Cool.
like in it, like a shish kebab, through a javelin, and someone cheers like, "Yeah, nice shot," and then just back to silence again.
Yeah. I would look over at the crows, realise there's no scales, and this is not a fish. I have no idea how to eat this.
Yeah, it reminds you of like the way that you know how this is going to sound stupid. You know how fish like swim, like if you're walking on the bottom of the ocean, fish are to you what birds are to us.
Yeah,
that's sort of the metric I was using. So it's almost like you're out of instinct, like, aha, yes, that's a I usually hunt things that float above me, so I will attack this thing. So yeah, you spear like 3 of them, and as you do, like almost immediately, like 4 or 5 of them come like fluttering down and start pecking at you, until they realize that they can't get through your shell. They're like, oh, it's just a rock, just ding 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 on the back of your shell, clearly like angry.
I'm shooing them off like I would a wasp or a bee.
Yeah. Eventually, they get tired of trying to peck through your like leathery skin and just buzz off. But you've got three. Add your inventory. 3 crows. Lunch for today.
I kind of look at everyone like holding them by the legs, and because I've got no idea what they are in terms of food. They're not scaly. They're not wet. They're not slippery, and I kind of like hand them out as an offering to any of the convoyers, like the travelers with us. And I'm just like, kind of no.
I think like a couple of people will just like fully like sick and just like grab them off you.
Yeah,
like
okay.
some of the people in the convoy are like, oh well, this will be lunch. Good job on it. And they're like, they try and clap you on the back, but then they like hit their hand on something spiky and like, fuck. Sorry. Cheers, thanks. And they massage their hand and go back, and they start plucking the birds and that sort of thing. But
can I watch them as they pluck the birds?
Oh, of course, yeah.
And,
you can
get an idea of what they do with it.
In your caravan, looking like facing backwards, looking in the caravan behind you, and see there is a person with practiced ease, holding the neck of a crow in one hand, and just with one hand just removing feathers, like an absolute mad thing. Like you've never seen something so practiced and skillful on something you're so alien with. Like,
cool.
What the fuck? Like, I didn't know you could eat birds, and all of a sudden this person is like preparing it as if they had done every day for their life, and you've never seen them do it before. And the caravan continues onwards in the direction that the crows were flying. They do eventually start to alleviate, probably about 10 o'clock in the morning. It starts to become less constant flapping, but then you start to hear something else. It's not the flapping anymore. It is now just a cawing. There's no, nothing's flying. It seems they've stopped and are just making a lot of noise. And you continue on, and eventually, as we have established, Honu's excellent sense of smell, you pick up a smell you're very unfamiliar with. Asterin, you're also very, very unfamiliar with the smell of death. Because underwater, smell doesn't really carry. There's obviously there's water in the way. Anything that would smell, it just gets washed out by other water. Like if you literally inhaled blood, maybe you'd be able to smell it, but smell just doesn't carry through water as well as taste or sound. So you're the idea of smelling things is probably a bit alien to Asterin especially, but definitely the smell above all else, the smell of carrion, the smell of rotting, horrible death. And it is a smell that puts a pit in the stomach. It's such a horrible wave, especially when you can't see where it's coming from, and the further you travel, the worse and worse it gets, until you crest a rise and the noise reaches a crescendo and the smell hits you like a dump truck in the face, and you see probably 300 feet ahead, where your road splits into 3 others, a 40-foot high, 60-foot long, 40-foot back down again arch above your road, one above the road past that, one above the road to the left, one above the road to the right, gallows. And from each one dangles corpses of every possible age and decomposition. The ground, as you travel forward, visibly there is a gradient from natural dirt color to that horrible dark, reddish brown of blood, eventually to just black. Just pure black of fallen rot, blood and gore has hit the ground here and just caked it and stained it for years to come. The sound is near enough deafening of these hundreds upon hundreds of crows picking at hundreds upon hundreds of corpses, as I said, of every which age and denomination. If you haven't already seen this place, it is like opening, not having ever heard about the Holocaust and opening up a history textbook. It is horrifying, utterly horrifying. I don't know how you each react, but
Any
every single
turtles?
person in the convoy just gets in, blanket over their head, and those of them that have kids are just like fully, wrapping their arms around their heads. They've got like candle wax, put it up their noses, put it in their ears, and just like literally wrap blankets around their kids' heads, so they didn't have to hear, they didn't have to smell, they didn't have to see, so they aren't experiencing this.
Are there any turtles?
Up on the gallows, make a perception check.
Nope.
You don't see any turtles. Obviously very distinctive, but I think you can sort of take solace in the fact that if they could get one up there, they would be very easily visible.
Yeah.
And also, since they would have to get them up there, that'd be really fucking difficult, because even if they stripped all the flesh off you, like I said, 467 pounds.
Yeah.
Turtles are heavy, really, really heavy. That's like trying to take a sack of bricks up a ladder. But you do notice, even with a 5 perception, some where the crowd of crows has gathered the heaviest. There is a relatively maybe day old. Well, it was a day old when it got put up here. Corpse. There is quite a deep gash wound across its shoulder. It is not wearing a shirt. Male, maybe, but it's been up here. You can probably tell the rope is relatively clean. It's been up there for maybe 2 hours, and it is already, there's no flesh on the head at all, down to the bone. Anything with real meat on it, it reminds you of when you would see, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the videos of on like Planet Earth and Blue Planet and shit like that, where they have whale carcasses that sink to the bottom of the ocean,
Yeah.
and they've just got like that. They're just completely featureless, and every million kinds of animals are just like tearing away at it. It's like that. It reminds you of when you would come across, a 3-week-old corpse somewhere out in the ocean, or anyone who lives on land. It's like if you've ever been on a hike and found like a dead fox or something that's been there for weeks, except this has only been here for like an hour, 2 hours, and it's already shredded to next to nothing. These crows are very intelligent, and they've clearly learned that if they want to eat well, stay around here, which explains why all of a sudden, around 2 hours ago, they all picked up and decided to fly over here. They all know what time the guards arrive. Thankfully, there is no one else here, and I don't imagine you stick around for very long to find out if anyone's going to arrive. You head on as best you can. Past this, the road gets a bit rockier. Almost immediately afterwards, you head to the south towards the Iron Seat Ridge. Bit of history. The Iron Seat Ridge is called that because the mountain that makes up the bulk of it is like one mountain surrounded by 3 smaller mountains. The bigger mountain is shaped like a throne from a certain angle, and certain cultures of the world, i.e. goblinoids, believe that this once was the throne of their god. I can't remember his name. I know his name is Maglubiet, but the critical role name, where they will have like titles like Dawnfather and Raven Queen and that sort of thing. I don't quite remember his name, but he's called Maglubiet. No, the Ruiner was Orcs, I believe.
I thought he was goblinoids
is he?
also.
Oh,
I
okay,
think
then
so.
yeah, maybe
I think
it is.
so. I could be wrong.
Okay. Oh yeah. So it could very well be the Ruiner then. I'll double check soon enough. But I think this is definitely something you've heard of, Astrid. You're like looking at like, oh yeah, that's I've heard about this. This is clearly the Iron Sea Ridge. Look, if you look at it from the south, it clearly looks like throne. And the legend has it that this was once the throne of the god of goblinoids. It's like a goblinoid belief that this was like the heart of their quote unquote empire. And the terrain gets slightly more rocky as the road becomes the Iverhart Byway, heading south. The journey is quiet from the Gallow Crossing onwards. There's not much conversation, there's not much joy or chatter. There wasn't much anyway, but it's darker. There's little conversation, and just as the smell of the corpses and the sound of the crows dissipates, you're about 4 hours away from there now. As it starts to sort of like get into the slightly rockier terrain, one or two of you might have had to, especially Honu, might have had to jump off the cart just to make it a bit easier on the horses for them to get up the slopes and over the rough terrain. Everyone make a perception check. Okay. Angus and Amun-Ra, you notice up ahead that there has been some kind of scuffle. This is the best way to describe it. There is a disturbance in the gravel and the dirt, and your cart has overtaken by like 60-70 feet because the other ones they can't get out and push. Basically, a lot of them are too weak to do so. Actually, Pete obviously isn't going to, and Steve, the only man who can use a sword, has broken his leg, so he can't help push. So they're dragging a little bit behind. You guys have hopped out to start pushing, and you notice that the ground, it looks like someone's just gone around and like stuffed it up with their feet, basically. And Angus, using your expert range of knowledge, you can tell when someone's trying to cover tracks. And you spot immediately that looks like someone who's trying to cover tracks and doesn't know how to do it properly. Which is obviously quite suspicious. So, I assume you relayed this information to the group. Let me do this really quickly. Yeah, so you relay this information to the group, and everyone, you see the ground up ahead has sort of started to. Now it's been pointed out, you can clearly see where someone's gone over and just kicked it over, essentially. And with the remaining perception checks, you see up ahead there is a bend. The rocks are getting a bit high, and there's relatively relatively dense trees now. Like as you get up to the less civilized places of the world, there's a bend in the road. As you crest it, you spot something in the. Luckily, he was saying yes. After the bend in the road, there is something laying in the middle of said road. What was everyone's perception checks? Did anyone get below a 10? No, not below a 10. Perfect. You all see what is very clearly at least one horse dead on the ground. Probably, let's measure it, 60 feet from you.
Is it in better condition than our horses, other than being
dead? Well, from this distance, 60 feet away, you can't quite tell. So what? How do you all see it like at the same time? You just turn this corner and like, oh, that's shit. What does everyone do?
rest my lance on the back of my like on my shoulder, like resting on my shell. Look to the others, and I slowly but surely begin to walk to the horse to investigate.
Okay. Let me do that very quickly. So you start moving forward. Let's tell you what. Let's move over to the map. So
I am
you will
at
see.
my reduced, like I have kind of tucked my arms and
Mhm.
my thighs in, so I'm again about 5
It's sort of
foot
the
tall.
equivalent of someone walking like shoulders hunched, like
Yeah.
Their body language is small.
Yeah.
And last one. Sorry, just setting up one last token very quickly.
Sorry, where were we on the map?
You
As in
on
the big
the
map?
on the
Were we still
big
in the
map.
ridge?
Yes, you are basically just coming out of the ridge. Yeah.
Okay.
So where it cuts through the grey bit, I believe. Let's see.
Is there just sort of like woods in Greenland all around us then?
It's sort of like a craggy pine is the best way to describe it. They're all pine trees in every direction, which is kind of it's kind of helpful for the smell. You know, like it's obviously not actually minty, but it's slightly better than just than smelling corpses, which was what you were getting up to not but a couple of minutes ago. So thankfully it doesn't seem too inhospitable. The road is still there, but it's harder going, and I think you, especially survival instincts, there's not great visibility. You can't see more than like 10 feet off the road because the trees get thick.
Oh.
Can I cast minor illusion?
You can indeed.
I'm going to create an illusion of me crouching down by the horses, investigating them.
Okay. So where is everyone on the cart? There's room for one person at the front and then 4 people at the back. Honu said he was headed over.
Yeah.
I'll be standing at the front.
Okay, cool.
Can I be
So you
there
hop off
instead?
at the front. Yeah, absolutely.
Just like centered of the road rather than.
Yeah. Cool. So you start heading forward. Amra, you wave your hand, say the magic words, and a image of Amra appears right by the horses. I'm going to roll some dice. What is your
15.
15? There we go. You all see the silence that sort of has come over the surroundings. All see one arrow flies out of the woods and buries itself in the ground exactly where that illusion is standing. And I'm going to need everyone to roll initiative. Oh yes, starting strong. That's what we like to see.
I'm doing well with my rolls today, and I always do it the wrong way. Bollocks.
Where did the arrow come from?
It came from the south, around here-ish. If you can see that ping.
Yeah.
Obviously, as soon as that happens, Honu, still slouched, but is holding his lance in an attack sort of readiness.
Mm-hmm. So, let me see what I rolled. Good news. You're bringing up the rear. 19 and then... Ooh, nat 20 on that boy. Hell yeah.
Sorry, do us a favour and add us there, please.
Oh yeah. Would you roll 3?
Yeah.
How could I forget? At 3. Just for future reference, if you click on your token, you'll see like the 3 numbers appear above it. When those 3 numbers are up, if you then roll initiative while that's there, it should just add it to the turn order automatically. It's a bit fiddly.
If you're clicking where your HP is and click minus, say -5, it'll deduct 5 from your HP.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, I'll do that, and see now you're at 7 health.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh,
No one knew that.
Very handy.
Wow.
Very handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
been
And if you do
counting.
+5, it'll give you +5.
Yeah.
Wait, say
This
that
And
is some
also,
kind
I
of
think
magic
you should
this
all
is.
have like health bars. It's a fun little addition. Yeah. So, take a swig. Okay. So, starting us off.
Take a sip, take a sip.
Unfortunately for you, lovely chaps, is not someone who's on your side. Honu, you hear coming from the south-ish, the sound of, it sounds like a child running, like that, but twice as fast and 3 times as angry as what can only be described as a giant, disgusting prairie dog rat thing
Oh my god.
being ridden by a little green man who has a sword, comes barreling out of the woods directly towards you. I'm going to just zoom open this token so you can all take a nice little gander at how
God.
disgusting this thing is. Just
Like
these
yoga
like
on crack.
So, given what's around my neck, would I know what he is?
you would know what the thing on top is, most
Yeah.
definitely. That is a goblin, no questions asked. The thing underneath it, I don't know how familiar you would be with said thing. So I'm going to make the tokens that big just to represent that they are 2 creatures rather than 1. However, the thing he is riding isn't actually, as big as that. It's probably the size of like a Labrador. So he is going to charge in towards you. Let's see what he's got to do. Oh my fucking Christ. I rolled 2 nat 20s. Well, time to show you guys what that crit chart's all about. Honu, can you please roll a d20 for me?
I can.
It was lovely knowing you.
Thanks.
13,
Good session 0,
13.
guys.
Bludgeoning, piercing,
It's
slashing
okay.
damage, 13. Deep slice, roll your damage dice twice and add them together. And the creature is bleeding for the next minute. The creature loses 1d8 hit points at the start of each of its turns until it uses an action to staunch the wound or receives magical healing.
Oh
So
my
you take
goodness.
6 points of slashing damage as this creature just swings in beside you and takes a good chunk out just a second before you're able to brace yourself. And you feel like blood start pooling within your shell, like flowing down one of your arms. And then he's going to use a bonus action. And let's see how much movement he has left. 1 sec. I'm just going to measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And bonus action disengage. 1, 2, 3, 4. And continues running, aiming to get as fast as he can up this way. I should note the brown bits at the edge of the road are like steepish slopes, so they take an extra 5 feet of movement to climb up.
As he's leaving my thing, do we get an attack of opportunity?
He has a bonus action disengage, and he just starts running the other way. It's very clear to you, like this is classic goblin hit and run tactics. Next up, after the cavalier, is Amon-Ra. I keep saying it like Amon-Ra, I think the character from X-Men is called Amon-Ra.
Is there
like
a character in X-Men called Amon-Ra?
I think so. Or I think that's one of his names. He's the guy Apocalypse.
Okay.
Amon-Ra, as in
Yeah,
like the
there you go.
Egyptian. Yeah.
I think they call him Amon-Ra because like he's meant to be an Egyptian god. That's what he anyway, it is Amon-Ra's turn.
Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra would like I don't know whether the goblin or the rat. Can I target either of them, or is it just one?
I'm using just a collective health pool for them.
Okay, cool. I'm going to Dissonant Whisper.
Okay, Dissonant Whispers. So if you grab the spell text for me. So So
You
DC.
whisper a melody. One creature of choice within range. They must make a wisdom saving throw, and if fail save, they take 3d6, and must immediately use a reaction to move as far away as their speed allows.
Okay, so this guy, 9 points of psychic damage. Nice. So he he starts scrambling up this little escarpment, as it's called, and like something catches his ear and his head like twitches, and the dog rat thing does that. You know, when dogs hear a noise they don't like, they put both paws over their head. It starts doing that, and it like half falls down the slope, and then just bolts that way. Very clearly not liking what it just heard. Nicely done. That was a 11 minus 1 on the wisdom save. These guys are not clever. Nicely done. What does your so obviously you said there's a melody that appears. That's what Dissonant Whisper is, or like you sing a tune or something.
But there isn't. There is no vocal component to this.
Yeah, no, but like in the flavor of the spell.
Yeah, so you whisper a discordant melody that only one creature of your choice within range can hear.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Racking
I was
with
going to say,
terrible
like,
pain.
do you have to like actually say it or sing it or whatever? But yeah, no, cool. If it's only they can hear, it's like a psychic thing. Sick.
Yeah.
Cool. So then after that, there is, they're goblins, and they're not going to be kind about this. Flying out from within the woods, just here, is a goblin. What is your AC, Honu?
17.
Deflects off of your steel-like shell, and he goes and ducks back into the woods out of sight. He's going to make a stealth check. What's everyone passive perception? Oh, well, no, you can still see him. He's still there. He got a 12 on his stealth check. That is his turn. And then it is Naylin.
I'm going to aim for this bitch. Well, I'm going to climb out first.
Mm-hmm.
And then aim for this guy who thinks he's hiding.
Mm-hmm. 18. That is definitely going to hit. He is like sat, squat, like knees to his chest. You can see him like giggling to himself and readying another arrow. And you just send an arrow directly through this dude's skull and kill him in one hit.
Yeah.
Splat. Just like inch-wide hole just appears in the middle of his forehead and he goes limp. Nicely done. Still got a little bit of movement if you want to use it, but
No, good.
that's cool. That is that. So, Honu, there is one of the people who tried to attack you is now dead, and the other one is now running. You get the impression, I should say, the arrow that was fired out of the woods did not come from this guy's direction.
Fair enough.
It came from the south of you.
Fair enough. You see Hanu slowly lurch out of his shell to his full size, and something none of you have really seen from Hanu in the past. You see a expression of exceedingly overwhelming anger, and you see him reach his hands with his weapon, and they're almost like arcing, and you see from behind the goblin that attacked him that's still there, a skeletal ghost hand as he casts Chill Touch.
Okay. So, 1d8 damage. Nice. It's an attack roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. 14. You're shooting at the guys running away, right?
Yep.
That is going to hit. 2 points of damage. Well, as luck would have it, he was hit by Dissonant Whispers not seconds ago, and as that sort of that rage, personal distaste by the looks of it. You've got goblinoid skulls hanging around your neck. You reach out with one hand, and a spectral projection just flies forward and just doesn't even claw him, doesn't punch him, doesn't strike him, just passes through, and he straight down without
It
sound.
actually projects from one of the spikes of Hanu's shell.
Oh yes, it's almost like a shoulder-mounted gun. Like it just
Kind of.
out of one side. Yeah, cool. So that is two. Any movement at all, or there?
No, well, he's down. I'm gonna, as my bonus action, retract into my shell.
Okay. So you see, as he stands up, just like all his limbs.
So you just see this anger
into the shell,
as
and
the spectral claw comes out. You just kind of see everything just thump in, and he kind of just shell spins a little bit before resting on the ground.
I'm fairly sure I'm thinking of it like a kids' TV show or something where they just like thunk, like go into the shell and then hit the ground afterwards. Like an old Looney
Coin
Tunes or
roll.
something. Nice. Okay, so does anyone speak Goblin?
No.
I have no idea.
Nope. Okay.
No.
Another goblin from the south pokes his head out the bush, looks at the one with an arrow through his head, looks at you, Nayland, and goes, and fires another arrow at you.
You remind me of the things from Labyrinth.
I'm assuming you don't have AC 13.
Oh, my AC is a lot higher than that.
Well, it flies off, and the horse like jumps for a second as the arrow flies straight past its head, and it starts to like shake and turn and try and run, but it's attached to a cart. It's not going anywhere. And then he is going to duck back in, make a stealth check, see if he can actually hide. Do a little bit better than his brother. Oh yes, none of you can actually have a stealth perception score that high. You don't know where he's gone. Astrid.
Okay.
Sorry, you can make a perception check to try and spot them, but like that's a thing
That's
you
fine.
have to do. Yeah, passive perception. You don't just know where they are.
Okay. But if I roll to see, I won't be able to do anything, will I?
No. You can do it, but it's like you might end up going in the wrong direction first. Like you have to be within, I think like 15 feet to be able to spot them. Like you basically have to be up on that ledge to be able to try and see where they are.
Okay, I'm going to jump down and go. I'm gonna go by here.
Yep.
And would I be able to maybe see where he's gone?
Yes, yeah, of course. Make a perception check. You can tell that there's a goblin in there somewhere. Like you've sort of like it goes up to around your. You said you were quite short, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like 5 foot. What, 5'5"?
I'm 4'9", I believe.
Jesus. Okay, yeah. So it's literally like this thing of rock and like rough gravel goes up to probably like eye height. So you have to sort of stand on your tiptoes, look over, look left, look right, and you can see there's like a bush moving, but there's another bush moving like 10 feet away from that, so you can't quite tell which one they're in, whereabouts exactly they are. You don't get eye line, unfortunately.
I'm gonna duck down and hold. Would that be my action, or is that?
No. That's the thing. You just have to sort of put yourself out there to do it. Basically, that's the only restriction.
Okay, I'm gonna duck down, and as soon as I'm gonna hold my action until he runs past me, just take a swipe at him.
Okay, so as soon as you see something, as soon as something gets into within range, gonna try and smack it. Cool.
Yeah.
And then next up, you hear another goblin voice. This time from the north. He does like I don't know if you've seen that picture of, I think it's God, like it's like Jesus carrying the broken body of the devil or something, like out of a burning chapel. It was parodied in I think in a Batman Joker scenario in one of the Arkham games. This goblin here, he mimics that exact same thing, holding the body of his his murdered brother, and he like whispers something into his ear and like clenches his fist and makes eye contact with you, Nailin. And he's going to move right fast up against you. Let's see what he can do. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. He like scampers along, one hand holding onto the like literally just like a rope that's around the neck of this rat dog thing, and the other one holding a sword, runs up towards you and tries to swing but misses. As he does so, he says another thing in Goblin. I'm not going to say it again because it is exactly the same thing the last guy said, and I can't recreate the noise that I made. So he charges up and then makes a swing, fails, bonus action disengage, but only has 1 square of movement, so just ducks back a little bit. And then we have Angus Redshin.
Right, I'm gonna dash out over here.
You fucking goblin.
And yeah, I'll sort of just like crouch down and then smack him with my heavy crossbow.
Nice. Oh, 17 is definitely going to do it. 11 points of damage. Wouldn't you know it? That's his max hit points. And as he turns to run, you fire across the bolt, and it goes like from the angle you're at, it kind of arcs upwards, goes through the rat dog thing, and then buries itself like on the meaty bit of his left leg and like right in the thigh. Hits like the equivalent of is it the jugular, the one that's in your leg? That big vein hits the goblin equivalent of that, pops, and you see just this spray of like black blood, and he hits the ground. So that is 3 down. Yeah, I've got rid of that token. Cool. Anything else on your turn? I don't know if you.
No, it's me.
Yeah. Okay. So you reload the crossbow and then back up to Armor Ra.
How tall is the banks?
It's around 4 or 5 feet tall.
Well, okay, can I sort of move over here
Mhm.
to the bank and sort of use it as cover?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And can I make a perception check? If it is a perception check, my action.
No, it's not your action. But basically you have to have put yourself there to do it. So that's the risk of doing so. You put yourself in the firing line. Yeah, make a perception check.
Sweet.
Nah, nothing. You turn around and you spot this guy up here and go, there's the bastard. But no, you can't spot him. He's a slippery little thing.
Then I'm just going to crouch down behind him.
Okay. Coolio. And then Nailin. You see everyone sort of like readying themselves around the slope to the south of you.
I'm gonna sort of like move to here and just sort of lift my short bow in the general direction, just sort of like wave it around until I see anything move.
Okay, so readying in action until if you see it, you're gonna shoot.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And Honu?
I'm in my shell.
Oh, you're in your shell. You you start brewing a pot of tea.
You
and
you hear the can open. Glug, 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 glug.
Okay, so you all see a goblin with a dagger in one hand, scimitar in the other, screaming bloody murder, runs up here, does a sprinting leap into the air towards Nailin. Everyone can make their ready to action attacks, those that have made them.
Opportunity attack.
Say again?
Do I get an attack of opportunity?
If he survives leaving your reach, yes, he will. As he leaps in the air, like that, sort of as he's appearing. So 7, not going to hit, unfortunately.
I'm going to throw my dagger at him.
20 does hit.
Okay.
He takes it, but he survives. And then Kahai, you're in your shell, so he now exits your reach. You can make an opportunity attack as he leaps overhead.
Wait, who's this? Is this anyone or just?
This is.
No, this
Oh
is
no, this is just on
Only.
Ra. The 24. That's gonna hit, and
Question: I didn't think. Would he have seen me as he ran past? Like, would he knew I was there?
this guy. If you were ducked down, he wouldn't have line of sight, but he seems very intent on attacking Nailin.
It was just because I've got a sneak attack as well. If it is.
Oh right, okay. I would say. Well, actually, you would have done it while he was within 5 feet of an ally. You would have done it while he was here, so you get an extra d6 on that as well. But basically, he runs, leaps into the air, and he nail him for a split second. Like your heart freezes as you fire a short bow shot, and it just sails over his shoulder, like Matrix dodges out of the way, just like flickers his head like 1 inch to the side, and it like gives him a sick haircut on one side. And then he just gets riddled with daggers, just and he just is knocked out of the air completely, lands like all the way over here because just by the momentum while he was in the air, and stops immediately in a pool of black blood, dead. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's all of them.
I'm gonna go retrieve my dagger.
Who said
wanna go-
combat
I
was
wanna go-
dangerous?
I want to go retrieve any goods that I can rob from these people.
Okay. So you all start. Say again.
I've drawn the blood as he skids across the floor.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sitting in
Yeah,
a pool of my
very
own
dynamic.
blood. I'm still in my
Yeah.
shell.
Yeah. Like you start to notice as you bore the blood that like you're filling up with with the blood. It like starts to reach
That's
your
all right, I
bottom
can
of
hold
your
my
tube.
breath, that's fine.
Oh yeah. Oh, you can hold your breath for like 15 minutes or something. Oh, I should know. You take another D8 of damage because you are bleeding.
Yeah.
You take 5 points of I think it's technically necrotic damage. Let me see. No, it just loses 1d8 hit points. You just continue to bleed, so that's another 5. Until you use an action to stop the bleeding. We'll say you brewing tea was you stopping the bleeding.
Yeah, I go into my shell to try and stop myself bleeding.
Yeah, and you bandage yourself up in there. Yeah, you've got all sorts of supplies that you've just got like hidden around.
It's like
Okay,
the
yeah,
TV,
perfect.
You know, I can't remember what it was, but there was a TV show where they went into the genie's bottle and it was just like a house.
I think that's Wizards of Waverly Place.
Was that?
I think it's
yeah,
Wizards of Waverly Place. Yeah.
I just remember them going into the genie bottle. That's the show.
Yeah,
As-
yeah. Like, it's hard to imagine a torture show as anything other than just like a little house, when in reality it's like literally their skeleton.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think by law it's like its own pocket dimension.
Yeah, it's a shell of holding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
great. Yeah, a shell of holding. Okay,
I love
cool.
that. Just FYI, I'm still in my shell, but if anyone approaches this goblin, I will get out and rush to them to stop them. But if no one approaches, I'm still in my shell.
I want to approach this one and start looking for goodies.
Okay, yeah. Everyone make investigation checks.
Oh.
I'm gonna find something in my shell I never knew that was there. Hey, that bit of fluff wasn't in there before.
Yeah,
sorry.
you go dive into belly button fluff. It's
Like
a
a
very
sorry.
very prolific mission.
It's nature's own pocket.
You can find the whole wing to your shell that you didn't know was there.
Oh, the West
The
Wing.
Wing.
Okay, let me just double check. I believe. So you find on them all of the ones that don't have the little dog things have a bundle of arrows, a short bow, a scimitar, and a dagger. All the ones that were on the dog things have just a scimitar and a dagger. And they, other than that, they're wearing like goblin clothes, which obviously, even if they would fit you, why would you wear them? They're pretty rough. They don't look like they have very much. But with a investigation check of 23, you notice the horses over here are not in fact horses. They are in fact straw dummies. Very clearly made to look like horses. And you find out rather grimly that they have used like part of a horse skeleton to make sure the shape and size is right. However, they are mostly burlap sacks painted with mud and stuffed with straw and leaves and twigs and that sort of thing. And then they've got arrows just punctured into them to look as believable as possible. And also with the 23, you notice something interesting to the orientation of this map is slightly off. I apologize. This should actually be to the west. You notice a path.
Ooh. How many? If no one objects, how many daggers are there? Because I would like as many as I can pick up.
4.
4.
Make sure you write down that they're goblin daggers. It will make a difference.
Right, I'll grab the scimitars then.
So that is
how many are
4
there?
scimitars. 4 scimitars.
Thank you.
And 2 short bows.
And I'll let people know about the path.
After some time and realizing that the coast is clear, Hanu will come out of his shell again. He will slowly and casually walk over to the one that he killed, and he will begin to sever the head from the body.
It's a grisly affair, but easily done.
And I will, for now, just hitch it to my belt and just carry it until I have time to deal with it.
Okay. So you sort of like shake it dry as best you can.
Yeah, best I can.
Give it a rough. I'm not going to track resources, no. But if you want to, absolutely feel free. But like arrows, I'm not going to hold you to it. Okay, so you take all these, and as you're sort of collecting everything, you calm down the horses, get all the stuff that you can loot, and you just like sort of chuck the bodies away. You don't worry about number of arrows. The only time I would ever have you keep track of like number of arrows and that sort of thing is if you're in like a incredibly tense survival scenario, or like you're in a prison break or some shit like that, where like you have 3 arrows and that's it. You need to keep track of them.
Okay.
But otherwise, like it's fine. Because the implication is that you can just make, I think it says in the PHP, like you can just make your own arrows with like a DC 10 dexterity check, and you make like 50 in one go. So I assume that you can get a DC 10 dexterity check at least once per 50 shots. But yeah, you're absolutely fine. And after you've tidied up, calmed down horses and everything, you the other carts arrive right behind you, and you hear there's gasps from various people in the caravans behind you, and they are, what happened? And they're worrying what you're they're obviously like looking you up and down. They see that Honu is just like, there's just like a big fuck off wound across his left arm that's just like very clearly been bleeding quite badly until he's stitched it up. And SCP comes over to you and goes, what in the hell is the goblins? What's going on here? He's just like sort of looking around. He like pokes one of them with his stick, and they're just asking what happened. What was this whole setup? Like, did you see them, or what happened?
Well, it seemed that there was a little bit of a scuffle with some goblins. We dealt with them.
Well, I can see that. Nicely done, boys. Okay. Well, you all okay? You look a bit beat up. He says, looking you up and down, he's looking at your arm. That's
Yeah,
like a huge gash across it.
I've seen better days.
Hooey, friend. Okay. Well, are we all okay to keep on going? Hey, just so you're aware.
You sound slightly like Mr. Poopy Butthole from Rick and Morty.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Most of my NPC voices are about as stupid as this one. So you guys are in for a treat.
It didn't even click until you went hooey, and I was like, oh, that's what it is.
My name is Mr. Poopy Butthole.
I'm going to go back in my hole now. Goodbye.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, Ashbeat says, we good here? Are we okay to carry on? Obviously, Honu, you're a bit beat up, but you can. He says you can take a seat in the back carriage for a little bit, take a little bit of a rest off, just to make sure that you don't bleed to death.
Give it like a cough, and there's clearly like a little bit of blood around my mouth, kind of.
A bit of lung comes up. I'm fine. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So you continue onwards. The rest of the day goes off, thankfully, without much event. And then the night, I don't know if any of you are on watch. I think it's probably none of you actually have to do night watches, because it's sort of like if you were on guard on the day, you don't have to be on guard during the night sort of thing. So other people have to sub in for that.
Would you say as that rotation of days travel, that'd be classed as a long rest? And
oh yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, you could have short rested in the truck, and you could have long rested on the night's journey, and then you wake up early in the morning the next day to bird song, which is a.
Sorry, I went for a wee and missed a bit. Are we not? Did we not investigate the path?
Oh, by the sounds of it.
Oh, I pointed it out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we told you guys, but I mean, you're with a couple of people with the caravan who.
Okay.
Nice path, yeah. A lot of people on that trail wouldn't be able to go down it, but it is something to note for future. So you travel on. The day ends, and you wager going off your. So what do I have? I should have a token that I can use for this. Yes, I do. Perfect. Oh, it's a bit big. Move you guys back over here. There we go. You get very close to your destination with the approximate location of Gravesford. A little bit of background for the name of the town. There is the ruins of Torfil. I keep bringing it up. Is known by many as the Black Grave. It is a town that was just absolutely decimated, destroyed, blackened to ash, piles of corpses littering the ground. And as a sort of like a way of taking that on and trying to move on from the fact that there was this mass grave at Torfil, they have renamed this town Gravesford as a ford being a place where you cross a river. The idea of crossing the graves of the people who did die in Torfil, of whom you can imagine many were at least related to the people of Gravesford. However, you arrive around midday. Still a little bit overcast, but the sun's starting to show itself. At for the first time in quite a while, not an exterior gate. There is no surrounding stone wall. There is no big wooden gate in the way. There's no guard towers. There's no bows drawn. There's no people shouting at you that you need to leave. You turn a corner and see ahead of you a number of houses. The first one you see is what looks like a tavern. Smoke coming out the top, and there's other buildings spotted around the place, all of which look very newly built and doesn't look massively occupied. There seems to be sort of this explosion of buildings, but not so much inhabitants. So you notice that as you're heading through, like there's a lot more buildings than people that you would see, and you're approached by a tallish, maybe like 6'1", relatively lanky guy wearing what looks like a mix of leather and chain, like medium light armor, wielding a spear and a shield, with just sort of like a helmet under one arm. The weapons, like, he's not wielding them, he's not pointing them at you, which is a nice change from most of the gates you've found yourselves up against. He approaches, one hand up, and says, "Hello there. How are we all? What do you? What's your business? Welcome to Graversford. What's your business?"
We're looking for lodgings. Canst thou help us?
Of course, you've got plenty of empty houses. Yeah, feel free. How many are there of you? And he's sort of like trying to guess just by number of caravans, but he can't quite get a good number on the amount of people. There's about 24 of you. And he sort of like gives you a once over and says, "Yeah, you should be okay. You've been traveling long?"
Yes. Some more than most.
Let's see if we can't fix that. Let's get you a place to stay. Well, if you just head straight down the main road here, you should find yourself pretty quickly in the main courtyard. On your right will be the Reluctant Pig. That's the tavern. I assume you want to be stopping in there. And on the left is the Townmaster's Hall. You should hear from him pretty quickly, and he'll get you sorted where any of you might be staying, and what to do with your noble steeds and caravans and such. But in the meantime, welcome to Graversford, and I will move you guys over to the town map.
Ooh.
So this is Graversford. The river running through is more of a stream than anything else. It is a tributary of the By Hills River. Various things around the town stand out to you. The interesting buildings. There is what looks like a fort, but not really. This little courtyardy thing in the middle of the town. The stable lodge is where horses might stay. There's a manor house directly to the south. Doesn't look like anyone's home or been home for a while. Various of these buildings actually have people in, but a lot of them don't. And as you're traveling down, a lot of you can't help but think, like, was it that easy? Like, the amount of ag we've had to go through, even trying to speak to the people at the front gate of these cities we've been traveling past, and they've like this just random dude didn't even give us his name and welcomed us to the town. Is it that easy? And it seems to be the case. As you travel through to the center of town, as stated, there is the Reluctant Pig on your right. I'll see if I can get the picture of the sign in the tavern, which is quite a morbid sight. It is a piglet, seemingly straining against a rope around its neck. Looks like it's trying to be dragged somewhere, hence reluctant. And there is some mild conversation coming from inside, even at midday when arguably everyone should be working. We'll say it's a Sunday. And let me grab the picture of this really quick. And to the left is the Town Masters Hall. It's probably one of the very few buildings that are made of stone. Almost everything else is wooden, and you can tell just from looking at it that there's all the wood is fresh. That's the best way to describe it. There's no like layers and layers of dirt that have been caked on over the years. The wood looks like it's been recently debarked. Here we go. Let's see if I can grab this picture. Nope, I can't. One sec. There we go. There you go. That's a picture outside the front, the reluctant pig. So you arrive outside the front of the reluctant pig. There is a what looks like a general store directly ahead of you. Town Masters Hall to the left, and someone steps out from said Town Masters Hall. A portly halfling man, 3 feet nothing, with this huge handlebar mustache that just goes from like basically earlobe to earlobe directly across his face. And he says, "Ah, welcome to Gravesford." And with that, I think if everyone's okay with it, that will be the end of our first session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coolio. Thank you everyone for playing. Hopefully the horrible descriptions of the tyranny of the Jurassic regime wasn't as traumatizing as it was to think about. Yeah, I didn't have fun envisioning it. Let's see, let me try and line up this token properly. So this, if you can't tell, is going to be your home base, the town of Gravesford. And as I said, there is a quite apparent lack of inhabitants for half of these houses. They seem to have like built them in advance, expecting people to move in. So congratulations, you all have a house.
Hey.
Ooh, lovely. I like reading those. Cool. So yeah, that's everything. Obviously places to go from here, but that'll be for this week.
Nice.
Thanks everyone for joining. Oh, Nick, did you record this by any chance?
I did.
Ah,
I'm
lovely.
just about to stop.